so this is a video called Tekken 8's DLC is Gross by BoogardMG. He's a YouTuber who makes video analysis stuff revolving around Tekken 8, and his subject matter obviously revolves around the fact that he's going to be talking a lot about the DLC practices that Tekken 8 is doing. I do think it extends beyond just Tekken 8 in a lot of ways, but we'll get into that discussion as we move forward. I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up here, guys, so that way everyone can see what I'm seeing here. And then let's go ahead and switch to the audio so that way you guys can hear these shenanigans right here. Okay, finally we're gonna put on a little cat music. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be talking about exactly how this pertains to the DLC practices of this game, as well as, like, I think fighting games in general, and how that fighting games have been approaching this subject matter overall. So let's start with this.
Code it. I have a serious problem with Tekken 8's DLC. A lot of what I'll be discussing in this video will also apply to plenty of other fighting games, and I'm well aware of that. But I'll be focusing on Tekken as that's simply the game I'm most familiar with. There's been lots of criticism online about various things regarding Tekken 8's DLC, like reselling previous DLC characters, locking the new replay feature behind a paywall, and other stuff I'll be discussing later on. But the first and my biggest problem with Tekken 8's DLC is something I haven't seen many people talk about, and that is simply the price of entry. Tekken 8's character DLC, along with the DLC of basically every other fighting game, is simply too expensive. I don't think $8 American is worth it for one single character, especially when the full game is $70. Let's look at Tekken 8 as a package and see.
So, what should be the price value of a character in a fighting game? That is a big question, and for me, I think $8 is not that steep. I think it's reasonable, but here's the reason why it becomes a problem. It's because there's so many characters that are adding in the season. When you add that up, it's like $8, $16, $24, $32. You're paying nearly $35, or $8, $16, $24. Yeah, 32. Yeah, so nearly $35 worth of DLC practices. And if you pay for the expansion ahead of time, I think it's like what, $30 or $40. So you're paying for like basically a like $100 package at that. In any case, for me, the issue that I have with the $8 price range is that a lot of times fighting games charge that price range for just the character and not the content that should be coming with the character alone. There should be, you know, not just costumes and content that's in it, but also single player content that should be kind of coming with it as well. Like, you know, a single player story mode that you can, you know, dive through. I think that NRS did a pretty good job with its DLC practices back before it became, you know, Mortal Kombat 11-ish. You know, Mortal Kombat 11-ish, they really started walking that line really closely. I thought Mortal Kombat 10's practice and Mortal Kombat 9's practice was really good. Like, you know, $5 to $8 is fine. $5 is like fantastic. I think that's a great value for a character. But I think that a lot of fighting games right now are getting really greedy and they're really pricing up the cost of characters. And unfortunately, if you want to play the game's full experience, like have the full package of the game, you're gonna have to shell out that money, because after like 3 or 4 years, you're gonna be paying for like $300 worth of like characters. You know, the rosters will get so damn big that you're paying for so much of, like, the DLC will cost more than the base game at a certain point, and that to me is like obnoxiously aggressive and very predatory in a lot of ways. It's something that I really wish that they would reapproach with fighting games, but unfortunately, because like fighting games were in this era of like no content and like very little like actual like production being done in the game, like a lot of times like a lot of people are willing to shell out the money because they just want to support the game, but more importantly, they're willing to shell out the money because there was a time period where like you used to get jack shit for fighting games. Like you get nothing and like no value at all in your fighting game products except for the online mode maybe, and if the online was stable. And I think that now people are very spoiled by how good it is, but they're also not spoiled. It's not the right word. I think a lot of people are starting to lose sight of the bigger problem at hand, is that if we continue to not speak up against the predatory practices of fighting games, they'll continue to like put like microtransaction mechanics that are like anti-consumer friendly. And I think that is a problem, because we're going to see a time period very soon here where everything is significantly priced up for no reason at all, when it really doesn't need to be. And not only that, but the products that you're getting are not even that good. We already see that currently with like Tekken Pass, where like the Tekken Pass products are not even that great for how much money that you're investing into it. Personally, I think that they need to be a lot we need to push the developers to be a lot better about their consumer practices and be a lot more friendly to their consumers, and really put out more value for the stuff that we're purchased. Fortunately, the $70 price tag of Tekken by itself is definitely worth it, because you're getting a great fighting game, but more importantly, you're getting a full package fighting game. It's definitely a fighting game where you get plenty of things to do, so you get your $70 worth. But the DLC part of this game is where it's just frustrating, and it's the same thing with every other fighting game out there as well. Street Fighter's in the same area too. Street Fighter 6, it's in the same category where the DLC practices are vastly outpacing the base game cost to a point where it's getting obnoxious. So it's and then I can see 3 years down the road from now, they'll never drop the $60 price tag, and then you have to pay $150 to get the entire package of the game. And that's just going to be very obnoxious. That's what I'm worried about, at least.
What you get for the cost of the game. For that $70, you get 32 characters, technically 31, a story mode, 16 different stages, a ridiculous amount of music, and a ton of other more casual modes like the arcade quest, Tekken Ball, the character episodes, and so on.
And I think this value for all the stuff that they give here,
Tekken Ball,
let's go through it real quick.
Episodes.
So I think that this is a great value for a fighting game right here. 32 characters, story mode, 16 unique stages, jukebox, arcade quest. I wasn't a big fan of the arcade quest, but it's something I'll still go back and play. It's not my single player content style of game, but it has a progression to it, and the narrative story is whatever. It's generic as hell, but it's got some fun cameos. I think Harada's in the game at some point. He's one of the opponents that you can face. The Tekken Ball is a fun little side game. I think that's always great. Having fighting games have little side activities that you can participate in is really good. Character episodes are a must in every fucking fighting game. They should be mandatory. You should always have a arcade match where you climb a ladder and you get a reward at the end, which is a cinematic cutscene that is a what if scenario. That could be humorous or intense or cute or fun. Either way, it's got to happen. Every fighting game must have this. It should be a staple. And the ghost battles being the new thing where you can basically create endless content for yourself. I think that this is a great content right off the bat for $70, and I do not like the price range of $70. I really dislike the price range of a $70 game. But there are very few times where I can say that between this, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, or I'm sure that God of War Ragnarok is probably really good too. Those are the few games where I could say that's $70 worth its value. But I can see plenty of $70 games coming out in the future that are just going to be complete ripoffs or not worth its value at all.
And so on. Tekken 8 launched as a very complete game. It's hard to argue that this game is lacking content, but this DLC, if you take the 31 characters the game launched with and assume that this was literally all the game had, it would have come out to about $4.50 per character. And again, this is assuming that $70 just got you the characters and nothing else. And here we are paying $8 for a single character. Remember,
I never thought about it that. I never thought about it that way. That's a great way to put it, as a matter of fact. That if you break up the value of $70 between 31 to 32 characters, you're really paying for less than $5 per character. But then they double charge you for DLC characters, which is obnoxious. And worse yet, they also prevent you from training against those characters, so you can't figure out how to fight against them. So if you do want to learn the matchup, you have to shell out the money in order to actually figure it out, or just, really grind hard if you get lucky enough to find enough of those players. I mean, let's not bullshit ourselves. The roster in this game is going to get enormous. It's going to get up to somewhere around 55, maybe even 60 by the time this game comes to the end of its life cycle. It's definitely going to get there.
Again, Over here in Canada, it's $11 per character, and I've heard in some third world countries, the exchange rate is so bad, they're paying a ridiculous amount of money for these characters.
That's fucked up.
A lot of people are going to say that these characters are expensive to make, and the company needs to charge this much to make a profit. But you don't think this is a little bit excessive? They're already making profit on the game itself, which had 31 unique characters, but they need to sell each character for $8 just so they can pay their employees and make profit? No, I don't even remotely buy into that.
Okay, so let's talk about that narrative, about the idea that it must be necessary to pay someone that much money, to pay $8 to support the game and to pay the employees. It's a narrative that's pushed by the CEOs of these companies as well as like producers and shit like that, because they want to make money. They're getting greedy. That's what it is. And they know that people will pay for them, and they know they're not going to get pushback. And that's why they're going to do it. They know that people are suckers, and they will believe any narrative that they want, and they won't look for the truth about what is the actual issue at hand. The real issue at hand comes down to the real factor that these companies want to charge you a premium price, like double the premium price of a product that of its actual fair value, and it's not necessary. They are making a lot of money off the game already as it is, between the Tekken coins, between that of the monetary practices, the fight pass, the game sales themselves, and the DLC characters. They're already making money on so many fronts. They're just trying to trick you with this narrative to purchase more of their shit. That's what it is. So if we really think about that, why should the value of $8 be that of a character? And we as consumers need to push back on those things, because if we don't, then they're just going to keep raising the prices. Eventually it's going to get more than $8. It's going to be $12. It's going to be $15 per character. Imagine how exhausting that'll be. Before long, you know, it's just going to market out the fighting game players, and people are going to stop buying the game. That's what's going to end up happening. Money is not infinite, you know? People have a finite amount of money at a certain point.
I see this as corporate greed, and nothing more than that. Think about the culture around DLC in fighting games. Almost every game ends up revealing the upcoming DLC character before the game's even out. These developers absolutely know what they're doing, and probably plan these DLC characters alongside the game and plan to sell them separately. So when people ask stuff like why Eddie Gordo or Lydia weren't part of the main roster, it's simple. They know people will pay, and they probably make way more profit selling you an individual character than they would have if you had just bought the game and then never paid again. They don't even try to add value anymore. At least with games like Smash Bros. Ultimate, each character included an extra stage and a bunch of music tracks, and this was only $6 made by the same company. Now granted,
so that's what I'm talking about right there, where you add extra value to the character. The character themselves shouldn't be the privilege of playing them. You should be adding a variety of elements to them. A stage inclusion, a single player inclusion, music inclusion. I still think that like $6 is not a bad price, but for those three things, I still think it's slightly overpriced. Personally, I would have liked to see like some additional like single player content. One of the big things that I would enjoy from my fighting games is fighting game expansions. Legitimately saying not just fighting game passes, where you can like buy all 4 characters all at once for like a somewhat discount, like a slightly packaged price, in which it's not even that much of a discount, to be quite honest. You're paying like $3 less or so. What would be nice is that they include at the end of every year an actual expansion, a legit expansion that expands the gameplay at the single player level as well as the multiplayer level. And I think that they are doing that currently from what we're seeing right now with the Heihachi stuff, because they're adding some single player content in the future with the story DLC that they'll be adding. I would be happy to pay for that stuff more than the actual character DLC, because I want to have a fun experience that I'm going to enjoy at a deeper level. I want to play characters like Lydia. I would enjoy playing characters like Eddie Gordo, but I would rather play a single player story that has a really cool narrative and a like amazing an amazing experience, even if it's limited for a short amount of time.
And Tekken characters are a lot more complicated than almost any other character.
When I say I'd rather, I'm not saying that, you know, fuck DLC characters. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that I would like there to be both. I would like there to be 4 characters that are released within the season, and at the end of the season, you can buy all 4 characters with an expansion that expands on the single player content at the same time. So that way you can cash out that way and really get your value for that. That would be nice. I just think that there's not a lot of consumer-friendly practices right now between fighting games, and I think that that's a big problem that we're facing.
In the fighting game genre, but I still think this is just too much. And looking at other fighting games, everyone's doing the same thing here. There's no reason why Akuma should be this expensive in Street Fighter. I don't want to stay on the price for too long, but I just think it's pretty crazy how normalized the insane prices have become for these characters. If you want to buy the Deluxe Edition upgrade pack, you'll need to spend 40 American dollars. This is $10 per character, and the only bonuses you get are a bunch of worthless avatar skins and 3 days early access to the DLC characters. Wow, what a deal. And listen, I know they need to charge money to keep the game alive, and DLC characters help fund its further development and maintenance. It's just too expensive though, to the point where a lot of casual players just don't think it's worth the cost.
And this for me is a major component, because I do look at myself as a casual fighting game player. I may understand like the theories, I understand how to get better at my fighting games, I invest a lot of time in my fighting games. A lot of people that would consider themselves casual would look at me as like a hardcore fighting game player, but I genuinely don't look at myself as a hardcore fighting game player, because I will abandon a fighting game if its content is really egregious and it is frustrating to put up with. And a great example of this for me right now is I really enjoy Street Fighter 6. I think it's a fantastic game, but that first year experience was really not enjoyable after the 6-month period. Like the last 6 months of the game was not enjoyable for me at a certain point. So I haven't found myself going back. And I doubt I'll be going back anytime soon until they announce a single player expansion to the game, to the shit like that. I know there are plenty of people out there that don't enjoy the World Tour mode, but I think that I would enjoy like a significant expansion, like 5 new maps in the World Tour mode or whatever, you know, something significant. So that way I have single player content that I can grind out while at the same time still getting better. You know, the more time I invest into the game, the more invested I get into the game. And I think that's a big part of the reason why I enjoy like Tekken so much, because like I can play other game modes and not like get overcommitted to the competitive nature of it. Like you want a good blend between competitiveness and some casualness, you know? And I think that sometimes you get tired of playing casual matches against people online. Sometimes you just want to play, you know, against a CPU and have a fun challenge mode and shit like that. I think like Killer Instinct has one of the coolest fucking single player modes I've seen ever, because it's endlessly playable and you can play it so many different ways and it's basically never boring. I think that's awesome.
For a lot of the more try-hard competitive players, they don't even think twice about buying all the DLC characters because they play the game so much. But for a lot of the more casual audience and people who are more frugal with money like me, $32 or $40 with the pass for 4 characters just seems excessive. Think about it. You're paying almost the price of the full game for 8 characters, or even more if you get the 2 character passes. Even though the initial game launched at $70 with 32 characters. I'm not going to tell anyone how to spend their money, but just understand that there's a huge portion of us who don't want to spend this much money for such little content. Just in the same way when we criticized the Battle Pass, people just said, just don't buy it if you don't like it. I'm sure a lot of people are saying the same thing here to defend the prices. But unfortunately, at least for the players who are actually interested in improving and learning in this game, this is not a great option, and this is why.
He's gonna talk about
cool new.
He's gonna talk about the replay features
and Tekken introduced that allowed you to take control of your replays to
He's gonna talk about that.
The game. One of the most innovative features ever seen in the fighting game, allowing people to learn matchups and improve without spending hours in training mode. Yeah, they locked that behind a paywall. You are actually unable to take control of your own non-DLC character while watching a replay against a DLC character. I don't want to sound dramatic here, but what were they thinking? Sorry to interrupt my rant, but if you guys want to support more scripted Tekken 8 content like this, then please consider subscribing.
Yeah, I think that is probably the biggest bungle in this game by far about their DLC practices. It's really abusive, and abusive is not the right word, predatory.
Thank you guys so much.
And really stupid, personally.
This is a terrible decision. And like a lot of the other stuff we've talked about, this is based on pure greed. People have long debated if you should be able to get access to DLC characters in training mode without paying, so you can figure out the matchup and learn how to beat them.
And I agree with that. I think that would be nice.
They are blatantly saying to our face, If you ever want to have a chance at beating Eddie Gordo, you need to pay the $8 to buy this character. And, oh, this cool new feature that you thought would save you, yeah, we're gonna lock that behind a paywall as well. Just absolutely ridiculous. I would love to see anyone try and defend this, because as far as I'm concerned, it's completely unjustifiable. I've actually had to resort to labbing Eddie at in-person tournaments on other people's PS5s because I don't want to support this. And it really doesn't help that these DLC characters are some of the most matchup check and gimmicky characters in the game. And if you've seen the leak of the next 2 DLC characters, let's just say it's not going to get any better. Speaking of the character selection for the DLC, let's talk about another pretty big issue.
Yeah, I didn't think about this till now. I didn't think it was a big deal that they were gonna resell like Lydia or even Eddie Gordo that much. Eddie made sense as the first character release, but looking back at it on hindsight, Lydia was a mistake to sell as the second DLC character. I think the smarter thing would have been to sell a DLC character that's familiar, has a little bit of hype but not much, then sell a brand new character. And then the third character should be like a hype character, and the last character should be like a guest character. If you're not going to include a guest character, then include a character that's going to also like really carry that hype over to the next season.
I'm just gonna say it. Reselling DLC characters should not be a normalized practice in fighting games.
I agree.
Lydia was released in Tekken 7 in 2021. We bought her 3 years ago, and they're selling her back to us already. I'm actually not aware of any other fighting game trying to pull something like this within such a close time frame. So
that is true. I never thought about that either.
This is pretty crazy.
And the reason why I didn't think about it is because I didn't play much of Tekken 7 in general, and I wasn't invested into that game. But now that someone points that out, it suddenly makes complete sense to me why people would be pissy about that. That would piss me off too. If I bought the character like a few years ago and now I have to rebuy the character all over again, that would I would be pissed off.
Admittedly, she does look quite different from how she did in Tekken 7, along with Eddie, but this is still just such a bad look. In terms of Eddie himself, I don't have as much of an issue with him. Holding back legacy characters to sell back is scummy, sure, but I'm pretty much used to that at this point. Although you could certainly make the argument that because of how soon they sold him after the game launched, that they should have included him in the base game. And it's pretty obvious that they purposely left him out so they could sell him back to us. But
at the same time, I also don't agree, because like 31 characters is a pretty large roster. I think that's well worth the value of $70. So I don't have an issue with selling legacy characters. I have an issue with how badly they are priced. I have an issue with the fact that they're priced at $8 for a legacy character. If they were charging $5 or $4 for a legacy character, then I wouldn't have such a problem with it. And personally, I also feel the same way about like the costumes in the game too. I wouldn't have such a problem with it if the price hike wasn't so fucking egregious. There's a good middle ground between selling costumes and outfits and cosmetics without being egregious, and you will get more money from people buying a lower value, you will get more money from people buying a consumer-friendly product that is easier for entry of barrier for people to purchase than something that is more expensive that people don't feel is worth its value, unless you're like a diehard fan. And people are gonna say like $8 isn't that much money. That's like I don't know, that's like a 12 pack, of Coke or something, if that's what they're going for right now. And I'd be like, fuck that, I got $8 is not cheap. It's not just being frugal and people, talking about anti-consumerism. It's also a major component of the factor that it's just not worth its value. It's not like it's a product that isn't worth $8. Yeah, you can get thousands of hours out of the character, sure, if you want to, and you have to if you want to get that money value out of it. But really, at the end of the day, if you just charge the characters at $4, you'd get way more people buying it because it's so much easier to purchase. In the entry of purchase, like that entry barrier wouldn't be so difficult to deal with. Personally, I think that like the price hiking between, because what they do now is like $8 for characters, $5 for outfits, and personally, I think it should be like $2 for outfits and like $5 for characters, because then it makes more sense to me. But also, like, I would be a lot more aggressive about purchasing these DLCs. I will never buy a DLC outfit that is $5. What would be even nicer is that if you didn't want to pay for $2, let's say that they wanted to keep a $5 price range for outfits, then make a bundle for outfits. Like, buy like several outfits for a discounted rate, you know, like, you know, if you can get like 6 outfits for $20, then, you know, for a variety of different characters, I would pay for that. As screwed up as DOA is, like DOA 5's like you know, microtransaction and the way that they were, you know, being egregious with their microtransaction, they at least packaged a lot of their shit so you can buy it at a more affordable rate. That's my big problem with it.
This whole issue is only going to get worse as more DLC characters get announced.
Yes, it will get worse.
It's been pretty much confirmed that the next 2 DLC characters will also be returning DLC from Tekken 7. And while they aren't as recent as Lydia, I'm still just fundamentally against the idea of reselling DLC from game to game, especially when it comes to fan-favorite characters. There's no reason why Akuma shouldn't have been in the base game for both Street Fighter V and 6, besides greed. But they get away with it because they know people will buy it. Sure, you can protest by not buying it or by review bombing the game, but at the end of the day, I truly don't think it'll be enough to change this. And I'm sure this is going to continue far beyond the first character pass.
So I do think that review bombing and negative press is a very effective tool to push back on why these games, or like why these DLC practices are not good, because it will influence people not to actually purchase them. But also, more importantly, it creates a lot, like it creates a nightmare shitstorm for the PR team that is working at Namco, as well as the developers. They have to put up with all this shit and they don't want to. So I think that it's an effective tool. However, let's be real, is it actually going to stop it? No. If you really want to make DLC practices or microtransaction practices change, there's only one way to do it. Don't buy the game. A, don't buy the game, or B, if you've already bought the game, stop playing the game. That is legitimately the only way to stop it. Because if they notice people stop actually engaging with their product, then they have no chance of actually selling you on anything. If you continue to play the game and don't buy their product, they know there's always going to be a possibility that you might buy something from them. But if you stop playing the game, then you will effectively stop that from happening. That will make the developers really listen at that point. You know, it's kind of the part of the reason why like Tekken Tag 2 was, you know, had such an influence. Not only did it not sell well, but the player base stopped playing it. Like a large portion of the player base gave up on it really quickly. You know, people care about where finances go and where their money goes, and so do these developers and so do these publishers.
This is going to keep happening throughout the whole life of Tekken 8, and probably keep happening in Tekken 9. It's just crazy to me that Namco would see a character like Armor King, who they revamped and made super cool for the Tekken 7 DLC, become one of the most popular characters in the game, and then remove him for the next game just to inevitably sell him back. And yes, I'm willing to bet a lot of money Armor King's definitely coming back. Honestly,
yes, he will. And here's the thing, let's talk about like how is a way that Tekken can do that without pissing off its player base. And the way I would do that is push them further down the road, you know? Release new characters first as DLC, or older legacy characters as DLC, and then release them in, like, I would release like Armor King in season late at season 2, like at the end of season 2 or the beginning of season 3. So that way that fondness builds and people want that character more, and they're ready to see that character come back, you know? Fans of the character and people that main the character, they're not gonna like that response either, but that's how you get people wanting to purchase those things in the first place. Absence makes the heart grown fonder, so take it away. If you're gonna take it away, bring it back much later, you know, and that's the way you can bring back legacy characters. The reality of the situation is that, like, you can't have every legacy character in every fighting game carry over to every other fighting game. You'll have, the roster will get so big and so fucking bloated to the point where, like, if we were to bring back all the legacy characters from Tekken 7 and Tekken 6 or whatever, you would have like 45 characters in a roster, and yeah, that'd be a great value for what you're getting, but how would you, like, that's going to be very difficult not only to balance, but it's also going to be really difficult to like lab the game at a certain point, and then you're adding more characters on top of that. You're adding bloatness to the game at a certain point. I prefer my games with a tighter a tighter character roster with good gameplay systems than a really large and bloated system that really isn't very well balanced, you know, and it hurts the play experience. Granted, you can always fix balance later down the road, but it's just that if you're going to try to fix balance with a massive roster, you're really looking at a long and grueling process then. I would prefer like working your way up there, because you could always DLC characters slowly one at a time and slowly increase that roster, but while slowly balancing the game at the same time, you know? Slow and steady wins the race, you know? I'd rather the developers take their time and get it right the first time than just slap a bunch of shit together and get it like, you know, an inferior product.
Pretty much all the legacy characters that were sold as DLC in Tekken 7 have a pretty decent chance of coming back, especially if this game's gonna last as long as the Tekken development team has said it's gonna. We could be seeing anywhere from 20 to 40 DLC characters throughout the lifetime of this game. And the sad part is, they know we'll buy it. These DLC practices are just so ingrained to the fighting game genre, and the culture around these characters is so full of hype and excitement that people just don't think about this stuff.
And that's why I go back to the major component that these games need to have consumer-friendly practices that allow people to purchase these things that is not so invasive, you know? Add an expansion, like do your season pass where you can sell all 4 characters, but then like after that year goes by, include a story mode expansion where you can get all 4 characters for a discounted rate since you waited to purchase the characters. Yeah, you didn't get the instant knowledge of all the characters, and you're gonna immediately be at a disadvantage against everyone who's been playing and grinding out the character and learning the matchup and learning how to use them. But since you are patient, you get a discounted rate. It's like no different than buying a game on Steam, you know? Hey, I didn't buy the game at $60 when it first released or $70 when it first released. I bought it like 7 years down the road, and now it's a $15 game. That's the way it should be, you know? Depreciation should be affecting the games. Same thing with the DLC roster. And I noticed that in Tekken 7, there was almost never any actual sales. Like, there was a few sales here and there, but for the most part, there wasn't really any actual like major sales for like whole rosters of characters or season passes. So it would be nice if they include an actual like expansion that you could purchase to actually get everything, or at least all of that season, you know?
Such a win-win for the developers. They get to make ridiculous amounts of money by overcharging and reusing characters that they know will buy, and also get to create hype and happiness in the community because people just so desperately want to play as these characters. At the end of the day, if the DLC is worth it depends on who you are. If you're gonna spend $40 on 4 characters that you know you'll play for hundreds of hours, then it's almost certainly worth it. But a lot of people, like myself, fall into traps where we don't actually care about the characters, but either just want to buy them so we have all the characters, which by the way, tournament setups are required to have all the characters, or in my case, want to buy them so they can actually learn how to beat them, so I don't just lose all my rank points to every single Eddie Gordo player. I think it's in these cases where the DLC becomes pretty predatory. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for today's video.
Alright, so that's the end of the video, and I think that him and I are in agreement about that clearly. I think the vast majority of consumers would agree that it is predatory, and it's not. It's not a great way to approach monetization for fighting games, and I think that people really need to champion against this stuff more over time, especially more aggressively now, because fighting games have grown significantly in the last couple years to become major mainstream like video games now. It was different back in the era when they were like much more of a niche genre, but now they're really growing like frenetically, like fast. The popularity of fighting games is really growing very, very quickly, and it would be nice that we can see a more appropriate consumer practice approach. I know that this is something that is not isolated to just fighting games too. I know that this is something that happens to shooters as well, and as well as free-to-play games too. So it's not like this is a new thing for video games in general, but we need to really change the culture around this. Otherwise, we could see a lot of like not only negativity, growing around the games that we're playing, but I think that it could eventually evolve into something actually harmful if we don't get ahead of it. It could turn into something that's not only predatory, but that could be taking advantage of people in a way that is probably fucked up. You know, I mean, like, when people talk about whales, for example, people that like constantly buy like microtransaction stuff, a lot of the times these people are like vulnerable adults who are unable to control their impulses, so they end up feeding their money to these corporations, and these companies and these publishers know that. They know that they're making these things addictive to actually like keep them hooked and locked. So I think that it's something that we really do need to push more awareness about like, hey, we really should stop this kind of practice and making it more consumer friendly. There's a middle ground that can be found where consumers are happy and the company is happy, and that is the best way forward, as opposed to the company sticking it to the consumers every chance that they get. You know, that's my input about it. That's why I think that there's a better way forward, but you know.